Hello and welcome to this video about the cycle of emotion. My name is Lindsay and I'm a peer specialist with the Dorset Mental Health Forum. Alongside this video, we also have a worksheet. So if you'd like a copy, please contact the REC office either by email or phone and we can get a copy sent to you. So first of all, I think it will be important to just have a think about emotions. We all experience emotions, and sometimes they can be really helpful and really positive for us. And other times they can be quite negative and something that we find quite hard to manage. And this is when the cycle of emotion comes into play. So number one is noticing our emotions, so noticing how we feel. This can be done in lots of different ways. And sometimes we'll find that our body almost kind of speaks to us about how we're feeling. So for example, if I'm feeling quite depressed, then I'll notice a kind of heaviness about my body. Sometimes if I'm feeling a bit anxious, I might kind of feel a bit of a fizzy feeling in my stomach or sort of butterflies. So number two is about naming the emotion. And sometimes it can get really confusing between noticing and naming. And just to explain the difference, if we're noticing our emotions, that's how it feels in our body. So the heaviness, as I described, and also the kind of fluttery feelings. But naming the emotion is actually putting a name to those feelings. So that fluttery feeling for me means anxiety. But it can be helpful to work out what word best describes the feeling that you have in your body. And naming feelings can sometimes be really difficult. I know before I understood the cycle of emotion, it was something that I found quite difficult to manage. And one way that I managed to name my emotions was by journaling. So sometimes I just sort of write about how I'm feeling and what was going on in my day, and that would be able to lead me to name the different emotions that I was having. Some people will sometimes use mindfulness and a sort of body scan to try and identify and name what's happening for them. So part three is accepting the emotion. This can sometimes be difficult in itself, especially if it's a very strong emotion and something that feels really uncomfortable. So when we're thinking about accepting emotions, it can be important to realise that it's a normal reaction. And we can also tend to think about what's prompted it. Has there been an event that's happened? Or has it been something that's kind of triggered maybe a past event and a past emotion? And as hard as it can be sometimes, it's important to try not to judge or condone and just let it be. This is something that I personally have learned through doing some mindfulness. And what I tend to do is try and notice what I'm feeling in my body. And I just take some nice deep breaths and really try and just let the feeling be there. I don't try and move it on or do anything with it, just noticing it. What's the texture? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And that can help me just to accept this is what I'm feeling right now. Another thing that I find quite helpful is to realize that emotions do change. So no matter how hard an emotion is or how difficult it is to feel it, or if it's a happy emotion, how good it is, that feelings and emotions do change. So if it is something that you're struggling with, it will change and morph into something different. And this could be that it makes it a little bit easier for you. So now we're going to move on to number 4, which is investigate. So this is all about investigating the emotion. So a bit like I was saying about the mindfulness that I do, think about how intense is this emotion for me? How am I breathing? So sometimes if we're feeling quite anxious, we'll notice that our breathing will go a little faster. Or if we're excited or happy, sometimes we might see those change in emotions too, and in our breathing. And what are we feeling physically? What's going on in our body? And I think it's important to say that emotions are never wrong. We all feel emotions for a reason. And our bodies don't kind of lie to us. There are guides that tells us what we have to do with the emotion when we feel it. So being able to investigate it can be a really important part. And then number 5 is allow and release. So when we're doing this, we're thinking about noticing and allowing those thoughts. So we've managed to do the whole of this cycle, and now we're just going to allow that feeling to be there. Trying to release those judgments and trying to release those thoughts of, well, we're struggling with it and different things like that. And just taking those nice deep breaths. Again, it's not about trying to move the emotion along. It's not about trying to change it in any way. Just about allowing it. And then with those deep breaths, we can start to release it. And releasing it can mean different things for different people. So I know that I personally will take some deep breaths and I kind of feel a bit of a change in my body. I kind of feel a bit of an energy change, and that will tend to show me that I'm starting to release that emotion. For other people, it could sort of be that they need to do an activity to release the emotion. It might be that they need to perhaps go for a walk and just release some of the tension that they're feeling in their body. Things like that. So I think what might be some good things to think about would perhaps be, what do emotions look like to you? What do you notice in your body? And is it easy for you to name them? Or do you need to perhaps do some kind of activity to be able to name them? Like I suggested, journaling. And how perhaps can you use this cycle in your own life? Is it something you use already? And is it something you think you're going to find helpful? Perhaps have a little look at the worksheet and see if that has any prompts on it for you that you feel could be helpful when trying to manage your emotions. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on the rec again soon. Thanks for listening.